Hey authors, did you know that you can market your books on social media and make sales without being super aggressive about talking about your book and asking people to buy it? Now, this does not mean that you should not be directly talking about your book, showing off your book directly to the camera, and telling people where they can get your book, because you should, but it shouldn't be the majority of your content. You should still have conversations, answer questions, give education. You should still talk about bookish things and other books and talk about your author friends and show things off. You can even do things like trends and just have fun on your social media and still be marketing your book. So how is that possible? Well, outside of the realm of just developing that community and that conversation so they get to know you and want to learn more about you, we're actually talking about something I'm doing right now. It's a little bit of product placement. So if you notice, I am in front of my bookshelves. You do not have to have bookshelves like me. They do not have to be big or overwhelming or pretty like mine. They don't have to be aesthetically pleasing. But if you have your books somewhere in your frame, that's going to get people's attention. Now, I've written a lot of these books that are on display on my shelves, but I also have them next to other popular books that people will recognize and pay attention to. So let's just say they're looking at my TikTok, my Instagram photo, they're looking at my YouTube videos. They're gonna start to notice all these things around me. You can have them on a shelf. You can have them sitting on the table in front of you. You could have one single one there. You could have several of them stacked. It doesn't matter, as long as it's something where they can notice it without it being, oh, look at my book. You have the ability to have it in your space, and a lot of them are going to ask questions about it. Now, it won't happen every single time, but the more they see it, the more they're going to become curious and want to know more. So even in my videos where I'm not in my author platform, because I educate on social media marketing for entrepreneurs on my other YouTube channel, I have things in the background or in the foreground or around that people notice. I have people who didn't realize I was an author ask about my books or my bookshelves or my bookish things, and then I was able to tell them what I do, and they were able to check out my videos, and you can do something like that as well. So as you're on social media, particularly in your videos, but also in your photos, you want to make sure you've got some strategic product placement. So if you're answering a question, or if you're talking about the book world, or if you're doing a trend, just have your book around. As long as it's in frame, somebody's gonna take notice. They're gonna look for the title, they're gonna try to read it on the spine, or they might ask you questions about it. They're gonna see a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until they get really curious enough to ask you about it or to go look it up themselves. But another thing that you can do is to have it a little more relevant in what you are going to be doing on screen. So let's just say you are answering a question, or you're doing a trend, or you're doing a dub, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the book world, but you're there doing it, and you just happen to be holding your book. You're not pointing to it. You're not saying, buy my book, buy my book. You're not screaming, I'm an author and you must pay attention to me. It's just there. I frequently hold my books when I'm doing bookish conversations on my TikTok page or my Instagram page. And while I'm not speaking about this specific book, I'm talking about the book world in general, or about publishing, or writing tips, or a story. If I have a story time as an author, I'm going to be holding up a book because it's a representation of what I've done. And then people will take notice. And oftentimes they'll ask, what's the title of that book? What's that book about? Because it's there and they can see it. So you want to make sure as you're creating your content, you do have your books around, or you're in a bookish setting. You want to be strategic about this, and it doesn't have to be every single time, but I will say that this has dramatically helped people to get noticed on the platform, because we stop for things that we identify with and things that we recognize. So they may not understand who you are or what your book is, but they do see a book, and that means another bookish person, and that means they're going to stop the scroll. So when you're holding up a book, or you have a book sitting in the corner, or you have a book sitting on your desk, or you have books sitting on your bookshelf, people are going to stop. They're going to take note of it. This means you have the opportunity to get your book in front of people without it being sales pitchy. It doesn't sound scammy and icky and feel gross because you're not pitching your book. It's just there, strategically placed so that people can take notice. Now remember, the closer it is to the camera, the more likely it is to be noticed. So you may want to bring your camera nice and close so that it can see that book sitting on your shelf very easily. You may want to move things around to feature a specific book. So you can see I have books here that people are going to take notice of, and around those, I've got my books facing out. So you can do a lot of things to get attention without it being something where you're aggressively in their face about it. So as you're marketing, please know you should be creating content that specifically talks about your work and your writing and your books and your stories and your characters. You should be talking about the writing process and the publishing industry, and you should be talking about bookish things. You should also be talking about books that you like to read, not ones you've written, but ones you like to read. Author friends, the things that you're doing at book conventions. Talk about the entire world on your social platforms, and then have your books in the background, have them in the foreground, have them around, hold them in your hand, and have these conversations so that people can get their eyes on what you're doing without it being you begging them to pay your bills. If you have more questions on how to do this, go ahead and drop them down below. And if you have ideas on how to strategically place those books inside of your content, let me know down below so we can help each other grow. And drop your follow and hit the notification bell so that you do not miss out on more of these tips and tricks on how you can level up on your social media marketing here inside of your author life, how you can grow in the publishing industry, how you can develop your writing, and more, so that we can bring the book world together to be a better, happier, stronger, and more effective place. I'll see you in the next episode.